Greg, this jet had just taken off. Based on what you have seen, what could have gone wrong here?
Well, you have to look at, Stephanie, a mechanical malfunction of some sort, possibly a flight control issue. The fact that the aircraft was in a very steep, about 45, 50-degree nose-low attitude at a high rate of speed, you can hear that in that Ring doorbell video. You can hear that the power is still up on those engines. And, of course, the airplane is headed to the ground at a very high rate of speed, high energy impact. So, again, mechanical malfunction or failure, some sort of anomalous operation will be the focus. But the problem is, because this was such a high energy impact with scattered debris and post-crash fire, the physical evidence may not be there for investigators.
Anthony, this jet had just taken off, which means it was loaded up with fuel. How dangerous was the crash?
Well, the aircraft was in a steep dive. So there wasn't an opportunity to save that aircraft once it had reached that kind of speed at that low nose down attitude. The jet belongs to a company called Jet Rescue. It's strictly a medevac company. They have an excellent reputation, excellent safety record, and the pilots undergo regular advanced training in the Learjet. Now, the Learjet is an incredible aircraft. The Lear 55 has a maximum altitude of 55,000 feet and a top speed at 540 miles an hour. Generally flies below that at a cruise speed of 450 miles an hour. The crew is experienced. I understand, and I heard a brief report early on following the accident, that the aircraft had just come out of maintenance. So I suspect that there is a maintenance issue, perhaps a partial flight control failure, structural failure. Not likely that losing one engine would cause this aircraft to crash. It can fly very well with one engine operating.
Ali, unfortunately, this week, America learned that you were a pilot.
Yeah.
They didn't get to learn it on a good day, a very bad day. But Philly is also your current hometown.
I learned my air traffic control communications at Philadelphia Northeast. That because the airport that I used to fly out of is an uncontrolled airport, so there's no.
What does that mean?
There's no control tower. It's like a rural airport. So you need to train to talk to controllers, and Philly Northeast is where I would go. I would go land, talk to the controllers, and take off. So I know the airport very, very well, and it's a little bit like Midway or places like that. It's an airport that's in the middle of a lot of stuff, houses and a commercial area. So that's problem number one. And when you're landing a plane, if you're trying to land a plane in an emergency or landing or taking off, the pilot's got a few things they got to do. First of all, land the plane, try and save everybody on board, and then not crash it into a place that has houses or people or trees to try and not create a problem on the ground. These two pilots had no control over this plane. It's evident from the way that plane went down. They were not able to shut the fuel down. They were not able to shut the engines down. So these are all things. They didn't even communicate a mayday or put their squawk box on 7700.
In what scenario does that happen?
Well, as your last guest said, it's generally not an engine failure because there's two engines on that plane. And the beauty of two-engine planes is they usually don't fail at the same time. So if one engine fails, you can still control that plane with the other engine. So when they're talking about control failures, it means something that steers that plane, the rudders or the ailerons, something that allows the plane to control itself in flight may have gone wrong, because this thing went down very fast at a magnificent rate of speed with the engines going. This is not a normal, there was no normal preparation. You are trained as a pilot for accidents. You're trained for those accidents to happen when you take off and when you land. That's the two most dangerous things in flight are taking off and landing. This is all you learn when you fly. The fact that those pilots were not able to communicate to the tower that there's a problem, tower is asking them, where are you? What's gone on? The fact that they were not able to shut those engines down, the fact that they were not able to shut their fuel off, means that something quite catastrophic went on. On Wednesday, we know it seems like a helicopter hit a plane. That's why that one went down. We don't know what this is.
As you're saying this to me,
Yeah.
I'm having deja vu
Yeah.
from speaking to you 2 nights ago.
Yes.
telling me the most crucial part of a flight is takeoff and landing.
Yes.
How extraordinary is it that here we are 2 nights later?
So the reason it's the most dangerous 2 portions of a flight is because that's actually where most accidents happen. So when you hear about planes crashing, you hear about them more on takeoff and landing. It is dangerous, largely because there's lots to go wrong. Your attention span has got to be on a lot of things at the same time, and you don't have altitude. If something goes wrong at 30,000 feet or 40,000 feet, you got a long time and a lot of space to think about where you're going to land that plane. A plane with 2 wings, you can glide in even without an engine. When you're at 500 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, and something goes wrong, you've got no altitude. You're heading toward the ground.
And nowhere to go.
You're nowhere to go, no altitude, nowhere to steer. And if you can't steer that plane properly, you're going to go wherever you're going to go. And so that's why those are dangerous parts of flight. The question is going to be, is this mechanical? Is there something wrong with the plane? Did the pilots do something wrong? They'll figure it out, because just like I said on Wednesday night, that's what the NTSB does. They will figure it out. But this is what you call a catastrophic problem, because we are trained to know what to do in an accident. They obviously weren't able to do anything.
And let's talk about that, Greg, because tonight's the news and tomorrow the investigation begins. You're a former NTSB investigator. Walk us through the next step tomorrow morning.
Well, the next step is really trying to identify the location of aircraft parts. Because the impact was such at a catastrophic speed and it spread parts over a very large area, it's going to take a very methodical process to gather all those relevant parts. Of course, this is a turbine-powered aircraft. Typically, these turbine-powered aircraft, at least here in the United States, that are used for charter and as private corporate aircraft, are required to have some sort of recording device on it. That was mandated by the FAA. If this aircraft has a flight data recorder and or a cockpit voice recorder, those will be valuable tools. The board can also use ADS-B data, that is more fidelity radar data, to try and put the aircraft performance together. And then, of course, all these videos. When I looked at the videos, it's apparent to me the airplane was not wings level going into the ground, nose low at a high rate of speed. That aircraft was actually rolled to the left. So it was in a nose low, left wing low attitude as it was descending. That could give investigators some sort of at least pathway to look for a mechanical malfunction or failure, or go back to the maintenance records to see what was worked on that could have induced an uncontrollable roll, maybe a runaway pitch. You can pitch trim the aircraft with a trim tab. You have aileron trim as well and rudder trim. Maybe there was a trim function, but it's evident, Stephanie, that power was up, that aircraft was at a high rate of speed. Pilots wouldn't have time to turn the fuel off, shut the engines down. They're trying to regain control of the aircraft using the flight controls. And they will try and fly it all the way till it ends. We saw that with Alaska 262, with the MD-80, when they lost the horizontal stabilizer or control of the pitch with the horizontal stab. Pilots, that's what they do. So the investigation is going to be a multi-phase, just like what's happened in D.C. You'll have system structures power plant groups looking at the physical wreckage, and then you'll have operations looking at the pilot aspect, weather aspect, because there is weather in the area, and then somebody will be looking at maintenance records. So there's going to be multifaceted parts of this investigation working simultaneously tomorrow, starting tomorrow.